The entire LIV Golf experiment is collapsing in real time, and the players who left the PGA Tour are suddenly trying to find their way back home. Now one of the hottest players in the world has finally broken his silence on whether they should be welcomed back. And what he said cuts right to the heart of the biggest fight in golf. Here's the full story. To understand why Cameron Young's words carry so much weight right now, you first have to understand just how dramatically the ground has shifted under LIV Golf in 2026. For 4 years, the Saudi-backed breakaway league was the unmovable disruptor, the deep-pocketed rival that lured away major champions with guaranteed contracts worth hundreds of millions of dollars and split the sport down the middle. The defectors were called everything from pioneers to sellouts. The PGA Tour loyalists who stayed were celebrated by some and mocked by others. The war seemed like it would last forever. And then the money started to run out. Earlier this year, on the very same morning the PGA Tour's Cadillac Championship teed off, Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, the fund that had bankrolled LIV from day one, confirmed the news that had been rumored for weeks. PIF announced it would fund LIV Golf only for the remainder of the 2026 season. The fund said the substantial investment required was, in their words, no longer consistent with their strategy going forward. LIV released its own statement saying it was now focused on securing long-term financial partners to salvage its future. Read between the lines, and the message was unmistakable. The bottomless well of Saudi money that built LIV is being capped. Without a new partner, the league as we know it may not survive past this season, and that single fact has flipped the entire power dynamic of professional golf upside down. For 4 years, players left the PGA Tour for LIV. Now, the LIV players are the ones looking nervously at the exits, wondering if there is a way back to the tour they walked away from. Some are already coming back. Brooks Koepka, a 5-time major champion and one of LIV's biggest signings, opted into the PGA Tour's returning members program at the start of 2026, a special pathway the tour created for some of the game's most successful players. Former Masters champion Patrick Reed, who did not qualify for that program, is now in the process of seeing out a full year after his final LIV appearance, before he is allowed to return to PGA Tour action. And looming over all of it are the two biggest names of all, Jon Rahm and Bryson DeChambeau, whose futures are now genuinely uncertain as the league that pays them teeters on the edge. And the consequences of leaving have been real all along. The moment players signed with LIV, they were effectively cut off from the PGA Tour, stripped of their membership and, in many cases, their access to world ranking points, which slowly eroded their standing and their automatic paths into the major championships. For 4 years they collected enormous guaranteed paychecks, but watched their competitive relevance quietly fade on a circuit that much of the golf world refused to take seriously. Now, with the funding drying up, those same players are realizing that the money was never guaranteed to last forever, and that the home they walked away from may be the only place left to rebuild the careers and reputations they gambled. This is the powder keg that Cameron Young walked into. And the reason his voice matters so much is that he has earned it through sheer performance over the last year. Quick pause. If you think the LIV players should be allowed back with no penalty, type "let them back." If you think they made their choice and should pay a price to return, type "there's a cost." I read every single one of these, because Cameron Young is no longer just a promising talent, he has become one of the best and most beloved players in American golf. After years of being known as the guy who kept finishing second, racking up runner-up after runner-up without breaking through, Young finally broke the seal at the 2025 Wyndham Championship for his first PGA Tour win. Then 2026 turned into a breakout for the ages. In March, he won the Players' Championship, golf's so-called fifth major, in dramatic fashion over Matt Fitzpatrick at TPC Sawgrass, tearing up afterward as he celebrated with his wife Kelsey and their 3 young children. Then in May, he won again at the Cadillac Championship at Trump National Doral, beating Scottie Scheffler by 6 shots for his second win of the season. Add in his clutch heroics at the 2025 Ryder Cup, where he became an American hero, and Young has transformed into a genuine fan favorite, admired not just for his game but for his openly devout faith and his family-first reputation. When a player like that talks about the future of the sport, the entire golf world listens. He is exactly the kind of homegrown PGA Tour star who stayed loyal, never took the LIV money, and built his career the hard way. So how he feels about the defectors coming back tells you everything about where the loyalist players stand. And when Young was finally asked about it, after shooting an 8 under 64 to grab an early lead at the Cadillac Championship, his answer was striking, not because it was a fiery attack, but because of how measured and revealing it was. On Koepka's return, Young said, "I think having Brooks back has been great. That alone is significant. One of the tour's brightest young stars publicly welcoming back a LIV defector, calling his return great for the game. No bitterness, no grudge. But then came the part that revealed the real tension underneath. "Honestly, it's not for me to decide," Young said. "I don't know what any of those guys are thinking about doing. I don't know what's going to happen with LIV." On the surface it sounds like a player staying out of politics. But listen closely and you hear the truth of the moment. Even the players themselves have no idea how this ends. There is no clear policy, no agreed-upon path, no consensus on what should happen to the dozens of stars who left and now want back in. The most in-form American on tour, a Players' Championship winner, is essentially admitting that the sport is making this up as it goes, and that uncertainty is the entire drama, because the question of how LIV players return is tearing at the fabric of the tour's locker room. Young's measured openness sits on one side of a real divide. On the other side are players who believe the defectors cannot simply stroll back in as if nothing happened. Jordan Spieth, the former world number 1, addressed it directly, saying he was not sure the path back should be the same for everyone, hinting that different players who left under different circumstances might deserve different treatment. Brian Harman, the 2023 Open champion, said he believes there should be a way back for LIV players, but that there has to be something, some cost or condition, to smooth it over for the players who stayed loyal and watched others cash enormous checks. That is the fault line. The loyalists who stayed on the PGA Tour, who turned down generational wealth out of allegiance to the tour, are now being asked to welcome back the very players who took the money and in some cases openly criticized the tour on their way out. Some, like Young, are willing to extend grace and say having them back is great for golf. Others want accountability first. And the tour itself is caught in the middle, having already created the returning members program for stars like Koepka, while forcing players like Reed to sit out a full year. And the resentment underneath it all is real. Imagine being a player who turned down $50, $80, even $100 million to stay loyal, who ground through 4 years of the tour fighting for its very survival, only to watch the players who grabbed the cash now asked to come back as if nothing ever happened, keeping every dollar they were paid along the way. For many of the loyalists, simply waving those players back in with no consequence would feel like a slap in the face, a signal that loyalty meant nothing, and that the smartest move all along was to take the Saudi money and wait for the door to reopen. That is why this is so much more than a scheduling question. It is about fairness, principle, and who actually won the war. So what is the massive announcement here? It is the realization, crystallized by Young's comments, that the LIV war is not ending with a dramatic peace treaty or a clear winner. It is ending in confusion, in a slow unwinding where the money dries up, the players drift back one by one, and nobody, not even the biggest stars, knows what the rules are. Cameron Young, one of the players with every right to hold a grudge, chose to welcome Koepka back rather than gloat. And in doing so, he may have set the tone for how the next chapter of golf actually plays out. The stakes from here are enormous. If Piff truly walks away at the end of 2026, the floodgates could open, with Rahm, DeChambeau, and dozens of others all seeking a route back to the PGA Tour at the same time. How the tour handles that, whether it demands penalties or rolls out the red carpet, will define the sport for the next decade. And the loyalist stars like Cameron Young, the ones who stayed and won and earned the moral high ground, will have a massive say in whether the game reunites peacefully or fractures all over again. For now, Young's message is clear. He is not interested in revenge. He welcomed Brooks Koepka back and called it great for golf, but behind that grace is a player who knows, like everyone else, that the hardest decisions in this saga are still coming, and that the answers nobody has yet will shape the future of the entire sport. If this breakdown helped you make sense of the chaos, drop a like before you scroll away. It is the single biggest thing that tells the algorithm to push these stories to other golf fans. And hit subscribe if you want more deep dives on the biggest stories in the game. There are more coming.